Ara pressed her face closer to the observation window. The jungle below was green and thick, full of dangers that had killed 17 research teams in the last 5 years. Her bioluminescent skin flickered from purple to blue, a sign of her nervous excitement. Below in that jungle was the thing that every species in the Galactic Council feared. She had been studying reports about this creature for months. It was 15 meters long, maybe more. Its teeth were made of a crystal-like material that could cut through titanium plating like paper. Its hide had no weak points that weapons could exploit. Every single team that had tried to capture it, study it, or understand it had left in failure or in body bags. The research station hummed around her. Scientists from 6 different species moved through the corridors, talking in their various languages. The traders checked their equipment. The crystalline silicate beings stood in corners, processing data through their geometric bodies. Even the ancient like Ara herself felt the weight of failure that hung over this place. Then Colonel David Price arrived. Ara had read his file 3 times. He was from Earth, a planet that most galactic powers thought of as backwards and barely civilized. But his record was strange. He had worked with every dangerous animal on his home world. He had lived with creatures that should have killed him. He had trained beings that were thought impossible to train. The council had approved his request to come to 7 and work with the. She thought they were wasting time. Price was tall for a human, with light brown skin and dark hair that was already turning. He moved slowly and carefully as if every action meant something. When he met the research team, his eyes were calm and alert. He shook hands with each scientist, speaking to them in simple words. He asked questions about the jungle, about the weather, about the daily habits of the. "The creature is not crazy," he said in the team meeting. "It is not mindless. It is protecting something. Once we understand what it protects, we can work with it instead of against it." Ara wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him that this was not some Earth animal that could be reasoned with. This was an alien predator with a completely different mind. But something about the way he spoke made her stop. He was not arrogant. He was not claiming victory before he had even tried. He was simply stating what he believed. The next morning, Price walked toward the jungle. He carried a leather satchel with supplies. He had no weapons, no scanning equipment, no protective suit beyond the basic clothes on his back. Ara watched from the observation post with her heart racing. "He is going to die," said a scientist who had lost colleagues to the. "We are watching a human walk to his death." Price moved into the jungle. The dense trees closed around him until Ara could only see him on the thermal cameras. He walked for an hour, moving deeper and deeper into the jungle. Then he stopped. The thermal image showed him sitting down on the ground, his back against a large tree. And then nothing happened. Ara watched the cameras. Price did not move. He simply sat there, breathing slowly, his heart rate steady and calm on the monitors. Hours passed. The jungle sounds came and went. Birds called. Small animals moved through the undergrowth, but no appeared. "This is a waste of time," said. "He is sitting and doing nothing." But Ara did not move from the window. She watched Price's thermal signature. She watched his breathing. She watched his hands, which moved occasionally to his satchel but never in sudden or aggressive motions. Something in her told her to keep watching. Then the jungle changed. The thermal cameras picked up a massive shape moving through the trees. It was slow at first, cautious. They had detected the human. Its body was 4 times the size of a large human. Its heat signature showed muscles that could crush a transport vehicle. Its mouth opened, and Ara could see the teeth like crystal daggers in the thermal imaging. Price did not run. He did not reach for a weapon. He did not try to flee or hide. He simply remained sitting, his back against the tree. He turned his head to look at the creature, slowly and without fear. They came closer. Its massive head lowered toward the human. It could have killed him in one motion. Ara held her breath. Every sensor on the observation deck was active, recording everything. This would be the moment of death. This would be the final proof that there was beyond understanding, beyond communication, beyond everything except pure hunger and killing. But something different happened. Price made a sound. It was not language. It was not words in any alien tongue. It was a low humming sound that matched the ambient noise of the jungle, a rhythm that seemed to echo the sounds of the environment. The paused. Its massive head turned slightly and its jaw closed. "What is he doing?" whispered Ara. Price continued to hum. He reached slowly into his satchel. The tensed, its muscles ready to strike. But Price pulled out something and held it up. It was food. Simple protein compounds that the human had brought from the station. Price placed the food on the ground between himself and the massive predator. Then he went back to humming. It did not move. It stared at the food. It stared at the human. It stared at the small piece of protein on the ground. A long time passed. Ara realized her hands were shaking. This was impossible. This creature had killed every other human team that had tried to approach it. This creature was supposed to be pure aggression and predatory instinct. It lowered its massive head. Its tongue, which was as thick as a human arm, extended and tasted the air. Then it ate the food from the ground. The massive jaw did not close around the human's arm or head. The creature simply ate the food it was offered. When it was done, it looked back at Price, and its body seemed to relax slightly. "It worked," said. "I cannot believe it worked." But Ara was thinking something different. She was thinking that everything she knew about communication and interaction had just been wrong. She was thinking that this human, this person from a young and backwards world, had just accomplished something that 50 years of science and technology could not do. She was thinking that she had just watched the impossible become real. The second day began before sunrise. Ara had not slept. She had spent the entire night reviewing the thermal footage and the audio records from the observation post. Price was still in the jungle with his vitals showed he was resting now, sitting against the same tree, with the massive predator lying not far from him on the soft ground. The other team members were shocked by the sight. A human resting in the presence of the most dangerous creature on 7. It was beyond their understanding. Some wanted to send in backup or a rescue team, but Ara stopped them. She realized that any sudden movement or interruption would destroy what Price was building. When Price finally moved, he did so slowly. The thermal cameras watched as he stood up, stretched his muscles, and made his way to a small stream nearby. He drank water and washed his face. They watched him do this. The massive creature did not attack. It did not see him as weak or vulnerable. It simply observed. Price then began to move around the jungle in a careful pattern. He was not exploring randomly. He was moving in a way that respected the space, always keeping the creature visible, always moving in calm and predictable paths. He would pause, observe, then move again. They followed behind him, matching his pace and movements. By mid-morning, Ara contacted Price through his communication device. "This is incredible," she said. "How are you doing this?" "I am not doing anything," Price answered. His voice was calm and clear. "I am letting the do what it wants to do. I am showing that I am not a threat. I am not trying to control it or trap it." "But every other team tried that approach," said. "It killed them." "No," Price said. "Every other team came with weapons and fear. They came with scanning equipment and tracking devices. They came expecting the worst. They felt that expectation. An intelligent creature can sense when it is being treated as an enemy. What I am doing is different. I am treating it as something that deserves respect." The day continued. Price moved through the jungle with he would stop and observe things, and the creature would stop and observe with him. He would move toward water, and the creature would follow. He would rest in the shade, and the creature would settle nearby. It was almost like watching a hunt reversed. The which usually hunted and killed was instead following the human like a student following a teacher. Ara left the observation post and went to the research lab. She pulled up detailed information about biology. The creature had a complex brain, with sections dedicated to social bonding and communication. It was not like the simple predators that other worlds had feared. This was a thinking being, an intelligent being, a creature with the capacity to form relationships and bonds with others. She realized something then. All the teams that had come before had treated it like a monster, but it was not a monster. It was an animal that had never known anything except hunger and territory. Every creature that approached it had come with weapons and fear, so it had responded the only way it knew how. Price was showing it something different. By the afternoon, Price had moved to a clearing in the jungle. He sat down in the center of the clearing where the sun could reach him. They lay down about 10 meters away in the shade of the surrounding trees. They stayed like that for hours, not moving, not attacking, simply existing in the same space. Then something remarkable happened. They made a sound. It was not a roar or a hunting cry. It was a long, low rumbling that came from deep within its chest. The sound was almost musical in nature, rising and falling in a pattern that had rhythm and meaning. Price listened to the sound. He analyzed it, and then he made a sound back. It was not an exact copy, but it was similar. He created a rhythm that matched this rhythm. He was answering. He was responding in the creature's own language. Ara, watching from the observation post, felt her skin shift to a bright blue. This was beyond anything in the scientific records. This was beyond anything they had thought possible. "He is communicating," she said to herself. "He is actually communicating with it." Price explained his methods later when he returned to the station that evening. He was tired but not injured. That had not hurt him. It had not even threatened him after those first few moments. "Humans learned thousands of years ago how to work with animals," Price said at the team meeting. "We learned that strength is not always about domination. Strength is understanding. Strength is knowing what another being needs and respecting those needs. The is not evil. It is lonely. Every intelligent creature needs connection with others. It has been isolated and attacked for so long that it has become what you call a killer. But that is not its true nature. That is what it became in response to threat." "You cannot build a relationship with an apex predator," said one of the silicate researchers. "It is illogical." "It is not illogical," Price said. "It is exactly logical. A creature that is treated with respect and shown kindness will respond with peace. A creature that is treated with fear and weapons will respond with violence. The chose peace when I showed respect. That is not magic. That is basic biology and psychology." Ara found herself thinking about this. She was beginning to understand something about humans that was not in any data file or scientific report. They had something that advanced civilizations had lost. They had the ability to see intelligence and potential in others, even when that intelligence was alien and strange. That night she watched the thermal cameras again. Price was resting near the massive predator was awake, alert and watching the human sleep, but it was not watching with hunger or killing intent. It was watching with what Ara could only describe as interest. She began to believe that the impossible was not just possible. It was becoming real right before her eyes. By the third day, Price had moved deeper into the jungle with the observation post could only track them through thermal imaging now, as the dense canopy blocked the visual cameras. Ara sat at the monitoring station, her skin cycling between colors as she processed what she was seeing. The thermal data showed something impossible. That was not just following Price anymore. It was learning from him. The creature was mimicking Price's movements, copying his patterns of behavior. When Price would slow his pace, it would slow its pace. When Price would pause to observe something, it would pause as well. "This is not possible," said, who had joined Ara at the observation station. "The creature does not have the neural capacity to learn in such a short time." But Ara was not listening to doubts anymore. She was watching something that should not exist, and she was learning to accept that her understanding of what was possible had been wrong. By mid-afternoon, Price emerged from the jungle with the walking beside him, not behind him, not ahead of him, beside him as if they were equals sharing the same space. The massive creature's head was level with Price's shoulder. Its movements were calm and controlled. Ara ran from the observation post to the landing area. She had to see this with her own eyes. As she reached the edge of the cleared zone, she stopped, her breath catching in her throat. Price was touching His hand moved slowly along the creature's massive scales. The scales were rough and hard, designed by nature to protect from weapons and attacks, but under Price's touch, they seemed to respond. They made that rumbling sound again, the deep vibration that came from its chest. Price responded with a similar sound, lower and weaker than the creature's but clearly meant to echo the same emotion. "Impossible," Ara whispered. "No one has ever tamed it." Price turned and saw her standing there. He smiled. "Come here slowly," he said. "Move with calm and respect. Do not show fear, they can sense fear." Ara moved forward. Her bioluminescent skin was pulsing with nervous energy, shifting from blue to blue again. It turned its massive head toward her as she approached. Its eyes were dark and deep, filled with intelligence and something that looked like curiosity. "Hold out your hand," Price said. "Let it smell you first. Let it know you." Ara extended her hand. This head lowered. Its nostrils, which were as large as her fist, flared as it breathed in her scent. Its jaw was closed, but she could see the crystal teeth behind its lips. One bite would cut her in half. One swipe of its claws would tear through her body like paper. But the creature did not bite. It did not swipe. Instead, it made a small rumbling sound, quieter than before, almost gentle, and then it moved its massive head to rub against Ara's outstretched hand. She felt the warmth of its skin. She felt the power contained within that massive body, and she understood something that no scanner or data file could have taught her. There was not a mindless killing machine. It was a living being with the capacity for connection and understanding. "What have you done?" she asked Price. "How is this possible?" "I simply treated it with respect," Price said. "Every other species came to this world believing there was something to be conquered or destroyed. I came here believing it was something to be understood. When you change how you think about a being, that being can change how it thinks about you." Over the next hours, Ara conducted detailed scans of both Price and She examined his neural patterns using medical equipment. What she found was remarkable. Price's heart rate was elevated, but it was controlled. His breathing was steady and purposeful. His brain activity showed something incredible. He was constantly analyzing this behavior. His mind was modeling possible responses and reactions. He was actively thinking about what the creature needed and wanted in every moment. But more than that, his brain showed something else. His patterns of thought were similar to those of not exactly the same, but following parallel structures. Price's mind was functioning almost like the creature's mind. He was thinking like a predator, but a predator that chose cooperation over hunting. "This is your strength," she said to Price. "This is what humans have that we do not." "On Earth, we learned this long ago," Price explained. "We domesticated wolves and turned them into dogs. We trained horses to work with us. We learned to fish and hunt alongside other creatures. We discovered that the greatest achievements came from partnership, not conquest. Most of the galaxy has moved away from this understanding. You have technology and science, but you have forgotten how to think like the creatures you are trying to understand." That night, Price slept in the jungle again, but now Ara and two other researchers slept nearby at a safe distance. They allowed all of them to rest near it. The creature itself seemed to be learning something new. It was learning that not all intelligent beings were a threat. The next morning, something extraordinary happened. Price led the tour to a herd of smaller prey animals. These were creatures that they usually hunted and killed without mercy. But instead of hunting them, they herded them gently, using its massive body to guide them toward the observation station rather than attack them. "He is teaching it," said, watching from the observation post. "He is teaching the apex predator not to kill." No, Ara said. He is showing it that there is another way. He is showing it that intelligence is not just about survival through hunting. It is about choice, about deciding how to respond to the world. He is choosing to follow Price because it has realized that Price understands it better than any other being ever has. By the end of the third day, it was clear to everyone at the research station that something extraordinary had occurred. The impossible had become real. A human, using nothing but patience, respect, and understanding, had accomplished what no alien species with all their technology and science could do. He had shown an apex predator that there was more to life than killing and survival. He had taught a dangerous creature that connection and cooperation were possible. And in doing so, he had changed everything about how the galaxy understood intelligence, communication, and the nature of relationship between different species. Ara looked at the massive standing calmly beside Price in the jungle clearing, and she realized that humanity's greatest strength was not in their weapons or their mind, but in their capacity to see worth and potential in beings completely different from themselves. News of what Price had accomplished spread through the Galactic Council at the speed of quantum transmission. Within 2 days, Council representatives began arriving at 7. A diplomatic vessel from the arrived with researchers and officials. The Trading Federation sent observers. Even the ancient and powerful Silicate Collective dispatched their representatives to witness what had occurred. Ara stood in the administrative center of the research station as the council members argued. There was outside, resting in a specially prepared enclosure that Price had requested. The creature was calm and peaceful. It had eaten the food provided. It had allowed multiple researchers to approach it and conduct scans. "This is impossible," said Counselor, with scales that glowed with natural light. "An apex predator with intelligence ratings of 8.5 cannot be domesticated in 3 days. The neural pathways required for such change do not exist in natural creatures." "And yet it has happened," said Council Representative Shia, a being from the who shared Ara's species. "We have all seen the recordings. We have all witnessed the scans. This human has accomplished something that defies our current understanding of biology and psychology." Price sat quietly in the conference room, listening to them argue. He had changed his clothes and was eating from a plate of simple food that Ara had prepared for him. His face showed no concern about the debate happening around him. He seemed to understand that all this arguing was necessary. When they finally asked him to speak, Price stood up slowly. "It is not impossible to understand," he said. "It is only impossible if you approach it with the wrong expectations. It is an intelligent being. It has needs. It has emotions. It understands when it is being threatened and when it is being respected. Every species in your council came to 7 believing there was a thing to be conquered. I came believing it was a being to be understood." "But how did you accomplish this?" asked Shia. "Tell us your methods." "I studied the creature's behavior," Price said. "I learned its hunting patterns. I understood what territory it protected and why. I realized that its aggression came from defending its home against invaders. I showed that I was not an invader. I showed that I came with peace. And when it tested me, when it had the chance to kill me, I remained calm and did not attack in return. I showed that I was different from every other being it had ever met." Price walked to the window where there was visible in its enclosure. The creature saw him and made that rumbling sound of recognition. "On Earth, humans learned this lesson thousands of years ago," Price continued. "We had a time when we were not the dominant species. We had to share our world with creatures far more powerful than ourselves. We learned that we could not win through strength alone. We learned that understanding was stronger than weapons. We took predators like wolves and showed them they did not have to hunt us. We took powerful animals like horses and showed them they could work with us. We learned that the greatest power comes from partnership, not domination." Counselor leaned forward. "But your methods are not scientific. They are not reproducible. How can we implement this across the galaxy if we do not understand the mechanism?" "The mechanism is simple," said Ara, who had been studying Price's neural patterns. "The human creates a state in his own mind that matches the state he is trying to create in the animal. His heart rate becomes calm. His breathing becomes steady. His brain patterns become focused but non-aggressive. The creature responds to this state by becoming calm itself. It is not magic. It is not technology. It is simply the biological reality of how intelligent beings communicate with each other." Over the next days, Ara spent hours talking with Price about his background. She learned about his childhood in rural North America. She learned how he had worked with wild horses and broken them to saddle without violence. She learned how he had trained dogs to protect homes and families. She learned about the deep history of humans learning to work with dangerous animals. "Why did your people never forget this?" she asked. "Most civilizations lose this knowledge once they develop technology." "Because we learned it in pain," Price said. "We learned it because we had no choice. We were weak compared to the predators on our world. We had to cooperate with other species to survive. And that lesson never left us, even when we became strong. Some human cultures lost it for a time, but others kept the knowledge alive. They remembered that true strength comes from understanding, not conquest." Price was given a position at the research station. The council decided that he would train both researchers and captured in his methods. Other teams were sent to different jungle regions to find more of the apex predators. And to everyone's surprise, Price's methods worked every single time. A young researcher named became Price's primary student. The young alien studied every movement Price made, every sound he produced, every way he held his body. Learned that communication was not only about words or technology. It was about respect and understanding at the deepest level. "I have studied science for my entire life," told Ara after a week of training. "But I have learned more about intelligence and communication in 7 days with Price than in 7 years of academic study." The implications of Price's success began to spread through the council. If humans could understand creatures that no other species could communicate with, what did that mean for human potential? What did it mean for how the galaxy viewed this young species from a backwards world? Some council members wanted to dismiss Price's success as a fluke or luck, but Ara would not allow that. She presented data. She presented scans. She presented the impossible results that came again and again when Price's methods were applied. "This is not luck," she said to the council. "This is human intelligence in a form we do not possess. This is human wisdom. This is something we abandoned when we developed our technology." By the end of the first month, 12 were living peacefully in the research station. 12 creatures that had killed hundreds of alien researchers were now allowing themselves to be studied and touched and taught. The council began discussing the possibility of forming a permanent human research division. Price never seemed surprised by any of this. He simply continued his work, teaching and learning, and showing that the impossible was only impossible if you did not understand the right way to approach it. And Ara, watching this human work, began to understand why the Galactic Council would eventually realize that humanity's greatest strength was not in their technology or their weapons. It was in their capacity to see potential in beings different from themselves, and the patience to build connection across any distance. 1 year had passed since Price first arrived at 7. The research station had been expanded 3 times. The council had approved funding for permanent human presence and research. Scientists from 50 different species now came to the jungle to study Price's methods and learn how to communicate with dangerous creatures that had previously been classified as impossible to work with. Price stood in the large training facility that had been built near the observation post. 6 of different ages moved through the space, some young and small, others massive and powerful. They moved with him as he walked, responding to his subtle signals and gestures. The creatures had learned not only to trust humans but to work with them in planned behaviors and movements. In the observation area above, groups of researchers from dozens of different species watched the demonstration. They came to learn. They came to understand. They came to witness what human understanding could achieve when applied to alien biology and alien minds. Aura was one of the lead researchers now. Her work documenting Price's methods had become foundational to how the Galactic Council approached interspecies communication. She had been promoted 3 times and was now directing the entire human research program. Today was special. Today was the day that Price would take a group of young researchers into the deeper jungle to find wild and demonstrate his methods on creatures that had never been touched by any intelligent being. "Are you ready?" Aura asked Price as she joined him in the training facility. "I am always ready," Price said. He was thinner than when he first arrived. His hair was, the work of teaching and learning and constantly pushing the boundaries of what was possible had aged him. But his eyes were the same as they had always been. Calm, alert, full of patience and understanding. The expedition went deep into the jungle. The team included researchers from silicate and 3 other species. They all wore recording equipment. They all wanted to see how Price would approach a creature that had no experience with humans and no reason to trust them. The thermal sensors found a young in a clearing near a water source. It was large, probably 8 meters long, but not yet fully grown. It was alone, which meant it had left its territory and was establishing itself in new land. Price approached slowly, moving with the same calm and purposeful steps that had become his signature. The young saw him and raised its massive head. Its posture became defensive. The creature made a low, threatening sound that made even the experienced researchers step back. But Price did not stop. He continued forward until he was about 5 meters from the creature. Then he sat down on the ground, making himself smaller and less threatening. The researchers held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Price made that sound, the rumbling hum that had become the foundation of his communication with the. It was deeper now, more confident because he had been making it for so long. It resonated through the jungle and the young recognized something in it. Not threat, not fear, something else. The creature approached slowly. Price remained still, his breathing steady, his body language open and peaceful. The lowered its head and smelled the human. Its massive jaws were capable of closing around Price's entire torso. Its teeth could slice through bone like it was soft fruit. But the creature did not attack. Instead, it made a similar sound back to Price. And then it lay down beside the human, its massive body settling into the soft ground. The researchers watched in amazement. This creature had never been touched by any intelligent being. It had never seen a human before. And yet it responded to Price with the same recognition and trust that the trained at the station displayed. "Why does it not attack?" asked one of the silicate researchers, its geometric form shifting with patterns of thought and analysis. "Because Price is communicating something true," said Aura. "He is communicating that he is not a threat. He is communicating peace. The recognizes this truth and responds to it. The creature's mind is advanced enough to understand that this being is different from all the others." Over the next hours, Price taught the young the same lessons he had taught all the others. He showed it how to respond to simple hand signals. He showed it how to move in coordinated patterns. He showed it that there was more to existence than hunting and survival. By evening, the young was following Price like it had known him for years. The researchers recorded everything. The data would be analyzed and studied for months. The principles behind Price's success would be documented and shared. That night, around a fire in the jungle, Price spoke to the gathered researchers. "You came from a galaxy that believes technology is the answer to all problems," he said. "You have weapons that can destroy worlds. You have ships that can cross vast distances in moments. You have minds that can process information in ways that seem miraculous. But you lost something important on the path to becoming advanced. You lost the ability to simply understand another being." "Is that not a weakness?" asked Counselor, who had come personally to observe the expedition. No, Price said. It is not a weakness. It is a choice. You chose to believe that only advanced technology was valuable. You chose to forget that understanding is a technology as old as life itself. Every creature must understand others to survive and to thrive. You forgot this because you became so advanced that you did not have to understand anything. Your weapons and your shields did the understanding for you. Price looked at each researcher. He looked at Aura, who had become his closest friend and collaborator. I am one human, he said. There are 8 billion more on my world. Most of them do not have my training or my experience, but all of them have something that you can learn from. All of them have the capacity to understand other beings. This is what humanity has to offer the galaxy. Not conquest, not superior weapons, not even superior technology. We offer understanding. We offer the willingness to look at something different and alien and strange, and to see potential for connection instead of threat. Over the following years, the 7 Research Station became the most important center for interspecies communication in the known galaxy. Price trained hundreds of researchers, both human and alien. The principles he had developed became standard practice across dozens of worlds. Creatures that had been thought impossible to work with became peaceful and cooperative once researchers understood how to communicate properly. Aura remained at the station, working alongside Price until his death. When Price passed away, peacefully and surrounded by that had become his family, the entire research community mourned the loss. They themselves mourned in their own way, making low, mournful sounds that echoed through the jungle. But Price's legacy did not die with him. The methods he had developed continued to spread. The understanding he had brought to the galaxy continued to grow, and young scientists from 100 different species still came to 7 to learn what the impossible had taught them. In the jungle clearing where it had all begun, a memorial was built. It showed a human kneeling beside a hands touching, 2 different species connected through understanding and respect. The inscription read simply, "Here, a human taught the galaxy that strength comes not from dominance, but from understanding." Aura would visit the memorial often, her bioluminescent skin glowing softly in the jungle light. She would remember the day she watched a human touch an apex predator that no one thought could be tamed. She would remember the look in Price's eyes as he showed her that the impossible was simply something that required patience and respect. And she would think about what humanity had given to the galaxy. Not weapons, not technology, not conquest, but something far more valuable. They had given the galaxy the gift of understanding. They had shown that intelligence was not measured in technological advancement or military power. Intelligence was measured in the capacity to see another being, to respect it, and to find common ground. Humanity, the young species from a backwards world, had changed everything about how the galaxy understood intelligence, communication, and the nature of life itself. The impossible had become possible, and the galaxy would never be the same.